You're listening to Feathers, a podcast of stories about God speaking and his people having just enough faith to believe him and obey. I hope these stories inspire you and encourage you to take flight in your own faith. I'm your host, Amy Bennett, and this is Season 3, Episode 10. Hey friends, and welcome to Feathers this week. I've got to start the top of this episode off with the announcement that the app is here. I am so excited about it. This app is going to let you get to the episodes very quickly. You just click on the icon and you are there. You'll be able to listen to them, you'll be able to favorite them, and you can see the show notes. So I know a lot of you guys are probably using the podcast app, which is totally cool. It will totally do what you need it to do. But sometimes I find if I'm going after just one particular podcast, that it's easier to use the app for that podcast. So I listen to Jackie Watkins' Mud Stories a lot. She has an app for her podcast. And if I want to listen to Jackie on that, I just click my Mud Stories app icon, and there she is. And that is what this is going to let you do. It's just easy access to the Feathers podcast, and I just love it. You can also, like I said, you can favorite things. You can share it directly from there on your social media sites, which I really appreciate when you guys share the podcast. It really helps get the word out there. So all you have to do is go to the App Store, look up Feathers. It is a couple apps down, so don't give up on it. Just scroll down a little bit and you will see it. And it's really exciting to see that on your phone. So thank you so much. And I'm so excited. The things that you have been buying from the shop have helped support and continue to help support that app. So I'm so glad to be able to provide that to you in return. So let's talk about the episode this week. This week we have Bailey Hurd. I actually was introduced to Bailey from Wendy Hogan, who was a guest. Let me think about what season that was. I think she might have been in season 1. But Wendy was a previous guest, and she emailed me. She said, Amy, I think you two really should connect. And she was totally right. I had the best time talking to Bailey. We had a lot of fun talking before and after, even when we were doing the interview. So we had a lot of fun, and she just has an amazing story. She actually lost her husband, I think she said about 3 years ago, and God really called her to share her husband's message that he had. And so it's just amazing to see and hear the joy, even though she has experienced something so tragic, to see how God has redeemed so much of that and is using her to spread such a wonderful message. So I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation with Bailey Hurd. Bailey, welcome to Feathers today.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
Oh, I'm so excited that you're here. Let's start off with you introducing yourself, your family, what you do, all that good stuff.
Yes. Okay. My name is Bailey Hurd, and I live in Highland Village, Texas, with my 5-year-old daughter, Ellie Grace. And I am a speaker, author, and a life coach.
Oh, I love that you said Ellie Grace. I have an Emma Grace.
Oh, beautiful. I love the name Grace. I love what it means, everything about it.
Yes. Okay, so since we got connected through actually somebody that I've had on the podcast before, Wendy, and so we don't know each other very well. So I thought what we could do, so I can get to know you and the people listening can get to know you, we could play a little game called If You Could.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so hopefully these won't be too hard. All right, so the first one, if you could have an endless supply of any food, what would you get?
That's a good one. I love me some Thai food. So I would say probably Thai or maybe Asian, like sushi.
Oh, interesting. So that's one area of food that I'm not a huge fan of.
Not so much?
Like but I have to say, though, it has grown on me as an adult. So that's like nothing that I would touch. But as I've been in sort of the corporate world and we went out for like lunches and stuff, they would always want to go get that. And so I've kind of, branched off and tried some of it. So a lot of it's really yummy.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah. You just got to find the thing you like and keep going with that.
Yes, amen to that.
All right. So if you could buy a car right now, what would you buy?
Man, that's funny you asked that because that is the next step for me. I've been looking at the Toyota Highlander. That's kind of what I'm aiming for.
Okay. And that's an SUV.
Yes,
so I asked this question and then I have no idea what kind of car that is.
Right. I know. Yeah. I'm not big on cars either, but that's one that I'm looking at right now. So yes, hopefully that will happen soon.
Awesome. Okay, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Australia.
I want to go there too. I've had a guest from Australia on the show before, and I keep saying, I'm going to come visit you.
Yes. Make that happen.
So have you been there?
I haven't been there. It just looks beautiful. I've heard wonderful
Oh.
things about it from people who have gone.
Yes. All right. If you could learn any skill, what would it be?
Any skill. I would love to. I sang as a kid, and I would love to have like vocal training. I think that would be fun.
Oh, I would love that too. That's not one of my gifts either.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of people's dreams. Wouldn't we want
Yes.
to be like, have the most beautiful voice? So I'm like, it's amazing to me that I learned a lot of these people actually train their voices. I'm sure they have natural talent to begin with, but then I'm like, oh, that would be fun.
But we sound awesome in the shower, right?
Oh, yes, we do.
Okay. Last one. If you could live in any time in history, what period would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. You know what? It's kind of cliche, but I would say now. I like the time that we're in. I'm really, I just think I wouldn't pick any other time than this one.
Well, I have to tell you, somebody asked me, I did this round recently, and I said the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I started to think about just women in general, and
right.
Like, you wouldn't want to live.
No, you wouldn't. Not as a woman. Yes.
Not as a woman. Although I did say if I could live, in Downton Abbey in the 1800s,
yes,
I probably wouldn't complain about that too much. I don't know.
Point. Yes.
Yeah, I think I'd be one of those I would love to wear like the big dresses, like hoop, being all fancy all the time.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for participating in that. That was fun. Just kidding.
Amy, thank you.
So I do want to get into your story because it is going to be so powerful. I know it. I know the high level, but we're going to see the details, and it has to do with the passing of your husband and the call of God to share his message that he had, that he can no longer share. So, oh my goodness, I can't wait to hear this. So take us back, kind of share the history about you and your husband and where you are now.
Sure. So we met at Baylor. He was a seminary student and I was an undergrad. I cheered for Baylor, and Andrew walked on the football team as a seminary student, and we met on a blind date, and we dated for a year and got married right after college. And then 3 years into our marriage, we had our beautiful Ellie Grace. And pretty quickly after that, it was actually September 11th, 2012, we got a phone call that changed our lives. My husband was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, which we think was caused from the intense radiation treatments to his chest when he was 18. Doctors found a cantaloupe-sized tumor in his chest, and it was Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so 11 years later, here we are with his second diagnosis. And, it rocked our world. I was 27. My daughter's 2 years old. Andrew's 29. And you don't see your life going this way. That's not how I saw this happening. But what was amazing to me, Amy, was how Andrew handled cancer, like how he was a man of faith, and he was a pastor, actually, in Dallas. And we decided to move to be closer to his family. And I just saw Andrew kind of come alive in this moment after this diagnosis. It was almost like he just decided, he was like, I don't know how long I have to live. I don't know if God will heal me or not, but I'm going to live life to the fullest, and I'm going to do all the things that I've always wanted to do. And a lot of that revolved around giving, leaving something in this world of value, leaving a lasting legacy of faith. And so, and one of the ways that he did that, Andrew wrote a book. He started a book called A Gray Faith, and it was about embracing your faith during the difficult and uncertain times, the gray areas of life. And he was writing this during his battle with cancer. He also started a blog at this time at andrewbheard.com, just kind of asking questions, opening up dialogues to people of faith and not of faith about how do you trust God in the midst of life's greatest challenges. And he wrote and he wrote and he wrote on that book, and I just saw the passion that he put into it. And then every weekend he would get up and he would go speak at any church that would have him come. And it amazed me because, we're in this whirlwind of chemotherapy and radiation treatments. We're at MD Anderson Cancer Hospital in Houston, back and forth, and he's so sick during the week. But the Lord gave him so much strength to get up every weekend and stand on stage for an hour and give this powerful and inspiring message to people who are going through life's challenges, and encouraging them to have faith and to trust God, regardless of if God heals them or not. And it was so powerful for me as his wife. I'm taking this all in, and I'm just processing what God's doing through Andrew and how all the lives that he's touching. So that really impacted me. And then another project that was beautiful that birthed out of this time of struggle was Andrew really wanted to spend time with Ellie, and he couldn't wrestle with her. He couldn't throw her in the air. And he asked me to buy him some colored pencils one day because he wanted to start drawing with Ellie. And she loves animals, and she loved drawing. And so that was their thing. She'd crawl up in his little hospital bed, and they would draw pictures together. And one day I asked Andrew, I said, Andrew, can I see your drawings? And I was like, oh my gosh, Andrew, these are so good. I had no idea that you could actually draw. And I told him, I said, Andrew, why don't you do something with these pictures for Ellie? And he thought about it. And then he was like, you know what? I'm going to make her an alphabet book with pictures of her favorite animals. And I'm going to write her love letters filled with all the important life lessons that I want her to know. And I just thought it was so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so he would write and write in the midst of, brain surgery. The cancer had spread to his brain, and so he'd have to do that. But he ended up finishing the alphabet. He got through it, and we finished the book, and he was so excited. And we talked to our publisher, and he said he loved it, but he wanted to change it. And he wanted to replace it with another, have an artist draw it because he wanted the book to be more commercial. And I was like, nope, not going to happen. This is I want my daughter to know how much her daddy loved her and how much time and energy he spent leaving her this beautiful book. That's his legacy to her. So I said, we're going to keep it. So what happened for me in my transition of what you shared earlier was I had this moment when we're at MD Anderson Cancer Hospital, and Andrew's book, A Gray Faith, had just come out. And this was a month before he was going to pass away. And he's in the hospital bed, and he has tubes coming all out of him, but he is smiling from ear to ear and has so much joy and starts signing each copy of his book. And it just moved me because I thought he has every reason to be depressed, but instead he is so joyful about giving something to the world to make it a better place. And so it was at that moment that I had this, you could say a calling, whatever you want to call it. But for me, it was a moment where my life flashed a little bit before me, and I saw that, okay, if Andrew doesn't live, I can see in his heart that he really wants to share this book with the world, because I think that he believes, and I believe, that he has a powerful message that can really touch and inspire lives. So I kind of dug deep and said, you know what, I'm going to be that person. If he doesn't make it, I'm going to be that person to share his message, to share his legacy, to share these books with the world. So a couple weeks after they told us to go home from MD Anderson and to prepare for hospice, we had this amazing company out of Dallas called Photolanthropy. And you have to get nominated for this, but they nominated our family to come in and do a documentary video and a photo shoot for our family to have these precious photo album and video of the final times together as a family. And so I had this beautiful footage that we had, and I just had this vision that I would show this video and that I would speak. And I was terrified, by the way. I was scared to speak. I'd done a little bit of public speaking in the past, but I'd watched Andrew Jewett as a pastor for the last 5 years, and he was an incredibly gifted, inspirational speaker. And I just thought, I'm not like Andrew. I can't speak like him. But it was almost like the message compelled me, and God's calling compelled me, and it became greater than my fear and my own insecurities about this. So after Andrew passed away on July 26, 2013, I started doing it. I just stepped up to the plate and said, okay, God, I'm just going to trust you with this. I feel like this is what you want me to do. And I had started a blog when Andrew got sick because I needed an emotional outlet to share and get out all of my feelings. And so I continue to write weekly inspirational messages on that blog. And that was the first place that I started asking people, hey, churches, anywhere, can I come share my story? I have a powerful story and a powerful book that I want to share with you guys. So I started there, Amy. And then from there, it is just kind of led one opportunity has led to the next, which has led to the next, which has led to the next. And I got certified last year as a life coach because I wanted to take it deeper on an individual level with women, going through life's challenges. And I'm just kind of in awe of what God's done. And last year I published Andrew's book in May of 2015, The Ellie Project, and I kept his original words and his original drawings. And it has been such a gift, Amy, to see how this book has touched so many families. It's beyond what I could have ever imagined. And I just really feel that Andrew would be so proud that his legacy lives on and is continuing to touch so many lives.
That was just beautiful. I love at the beginning of this that how scared you were, how fearful you were, and yet you were the one reaching out to churches and places to say, let me speak. I think that action to me shows how much faith you had in it, because I think you would be tempted, like, because I feel like in my life, God has asked me to speak too. And, so I've been to conferences with people that are in the same boat. And I think sometimes we were like, oh, well, the doors will open, if I'm supposed to do that. And yet you're, reaching out and saying, I've got this message. I want to share it.
It's true. And that was the thing, Amy, for me, is that, like I said, the message, I started to believe that this message is really important. And it's like that expanded in my mind versus before it was my fears that were expansive in my mind. And so I struggled to get past that. And then another thing is I'm a perfectionist by nature. So I was always like, well, I'm not good enough, so I'm not going to put myself out there until it's perfect, quote unquote perfect, or all my ducks are in a row. And I just learned, life can be short. And once that happened to my husband, I realized that could happen to any of us. That could happen to me. And so it was more of this sense of urgency, not out of fear necessarily, but out of this sense of I want to fully live, and so that's when I kind of just embraced that mentality. And I said, you know what, babe, you're going to learn as you go. And that was a big moment for me, because before I would have been afraid of messing up and failing. And now it was like, I'm okay to fail. I want to fail a little bit so that I can grow and learn and see this progress. And I realize now that everybody starts somewhere, and we just have to start, and we just have to keep going and picking ourselves back up. And Andrew has this awesome quote, Amy, in the Ellie Project about courage. It's the letter C. And he talks about courage doesn't come because you are big, strong, or without fear. Courage comes because you aren't big, you aren't strong, you do fear, but you don't give up. And that message right there just inspires me to continue to persevere and to trust God that I'm going to continue to grow and learn through this experience.
That brings tears to my eyes, because it's so true that we think that people that are courageous are ones that are without fear, and they feel big and confident, but really people with courage face fears, feel small, and yet do it anyway.
Yes.
So this message that you're carrying, can you share some of those things from the book?
Yeah, some of the lessons from the book.
Yes, yeah. I would love to hear some of those.
So my message, the message that I put together this keynote speech, and that's what I travel around and I give. And, my message is that I want to show people that no matter what they've gone through or what they're going through, that they can use the lessons from their painful experiences and transform them into the fuel that creates a more meaningful and purposeful life. So that's kind of the heart of my message. But through that, I share 3 lessons from the Ellie Project. I just shared the one I shared with you is one of the lessons that I share. Another one is he has P is for peacock. And I'm pulling out one. The pride we have doesn't come from the outside, but from the wonder of the work done on our inside. And through that, I talk about the inner work that I've done. So I've seen a therapist, met with a therapist. I work with coaches because I really wanted to do the internal work to grow as a person and to get healing, to continue to work through my grieving. And a lot of that internal work, I've realized, when we do the inner work, that it shows up on the outside. And sometimes our outer world falls into place as we continue to look on the inside and work on ourselves. So that's one of the lessons. And then the last one is, let me see. Okay, so this one is great. This one's on the cover of the book. It's G is for giraffe, and we have a picture of the giraffe on the cover. But it's sometimes you must look at things from a higher perspective to see what's really going on. And I love that one because I really talk about Andrew's higher perspective because he was really scared. He wasn't going through this whole cancer experience free of fear. He was very afraid. There was a lot of fear there. There was a lot of having faith that God would heal him. But there was also the reality that God might not heal him. and that that's okay, because Andrew had this higher perspective that that this life was not the end, but that this life was just the beginning of something so much greater. And he truly believed that God had this daring adventure for Andrew on the other side of this life. And that higher perspective gave him the faith to really trust God through the really scary parts of life. So, and then I talk about just day-to-day challenges for us as women. You know, for me, I got like a negative comment on my blog one time, and I was sharing about my experience with antidepressants. I'd been on them for 10 years, and I decided like I wanted to, with a doctor's help me kind of wean off of that. And somebody commented about how my blog made her feel bad about her, that she couldn't get off her medication. And to me, I thought I did something wrong. I let it ruin my whole day, you know, just thinking about it. And then I realized the higher perspective was that other people were saying, hey, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing this part of your story. And then I had one person being critical. And then when I really looked at her comment, I saw that there was so much pain inside of her. And that got me out of my own pettiness and need for everybody to like me. And I was able to have compassion for her. And so, you know, I really encourage people to think about how having a higher perspective in their lives, or whatever the situations they're going through, how that could benefit them.
That is so true. Don't we by nature just concentrate on the negative? Like we just hone in on that negative and just
the one
stay
bad.
there.
You know, there could be so much good, and then we see the one bad.
Yes. I think, I don't know if you know Jon Acuff.
Yeah.
He's an author, but he talks about this, I think, specifically with his book reviews. He's like, I could have 1,000 good 5-star reviews, and I'm going to concentrate on the 1 2-star.
Yes.
But I think it's so true, and it's such a good reminder to make sure we have a good perspective on, I mean, that's so true on all parts of our lives. Making sure, I mean, just seriously, this morning our fridge went out.
Right. Yes.
And it's so easy for me to, you know, concentrate, like what is going wrong? You know, like, oh, now we're going to have to pay that. Right. But like in a higher perspective, it's awesome because we just got our tax return last night.
Yeah. Yes.
So God provided right in the right time. So just change my perspective and think of it as a good thing. Like, wow, you know, we got just what we needed when we needed it. Exactly. Even though something bad happened. So yeah, in small things like that too. I think it's so important to think about perspective. So you were talking about all the touched families that you've been able to touch in the last, 3 or 4 years since you've
passed away. It'll be 3 years in July.
Okay, 3 years. I would love, just off the cuff, is there one particular story of a touched family that you could share?
Wow, there's so many really special ones. One for me recently that's been so neat is that there's a family that's going through the book, like as a family. Like each night they're reading, you know, one of the letters of the alphabet. Because it's interesting, let me tell you real quick, the pictures are very much, you know, for children. The children really love them. But because it's an alphabet book, you might think, oh, just for young children. But as I shared with you, those are the quotes from the book. So they're very much like quotes for people to grow into, almost for adults, you know, in a way.
Yeah, but isn't that one of those things, like everything you need to know you learn in kindergarten?
Right.
It's just like you got to keep reminding yourself of these simple truths.
Yeah, it's true. And so so that's been neat to me. I never thought of it like that. Like it's opening up discussions, you know, or people who I'm not sure, you know, what they believe in their faith or whatever, but they're having faith discussions over this book. And about heaven and about, so it's creating depth in conversation with families. And that's really special to me. And it's bringing families together because, you know, one thing that I learned through this is, you know, why don't we appreciate what we have when we have it? I say that in my speech. And because it was a moment for me when I realized that, oh my gosh, like what was happening to our family. And so it was a moment of appreciating and being present with our families and really appreciation and gratitude. So that's what I'm seeing from this book is it's bringing families together, and there's a lot of gratitude and love and depth.
It sounds like something exactly what Andrew would want.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Because, family, it's so amazing how things can change so quickly.
Right.
I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, my mom had a scare with my dad calling me like 5 a.m, thinking that she was having a heart attack.
Gosh.
Oh, and my mom's been so healthy, and it wasn't, thankfully, a heart attack. But with those moments when you go, oh my gosh, everything could just change. so quickly. And we just have to remember, just like you said, to be grateful and appreciate the things you have while you have them.
Very much so.
Yeah. Well, as you think about this, time that you've gone through, both in the tragedy of your husband and also seeing God kind of move through speaking and stuff, was there a particular scripture that you had that really encouraged you?
Yeah, it's my life verse. It's like God gave me all of this stuff, Amy, a long time ago. I kind of have that higher perspective after going through this. That it's like I saw what the Lord was doing a long time ago. Like it's kind of incredible to see how He was almost preparing me for this in a way, and through the people He put in my life, through the Scripture. So the verse that stands out to me is 2 Timothy 1:7. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and self-discipline. And that's stuck with me my whole life. And it's been one of those I've always gone back to. And I especially needed that scripture as I went through that specific challenge.
That's actually mine.
Is it? Amy!
Yes, it actually is. That was actually the first verse I ever memorized, John 3:16,
Yep.
But that is, and I think that's why it's so important that even hosting this podcast, I just love hearing when women can overcome the fear that they have.
Me too.
And just rely on that faith and that verse. And I find it so interesting that God I feel like, He gave us power, love, and a sound mind. I memorize it as a sound mind or self-discipline. But I feel like as I go, He's showing me those parts, like showing me His power in my weakness and showing me His love that just, overcomes everything, and showing me what it looks like to have a sound mind and really self-discipline. So yeah, that's super powerful verse.
Great.
It's a great one. I also, that's a good one to share with your kids too, as my kids struggle with, fear, whether it be of the dark or doing a presentation or whatever. I just have them repeat that verse.
I love that idea.
Yeah. And it's not that it's exactly, circling back to what we talked about. It's not that you don't go through life without fear and it suddenly, is fixed. But it does give you enough faith to overcome that and keep going.
Yes, love that, Amy. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So if people want to find the books, where can they do that at?
Yeah. So my blog is baileyhurd.com. And then the books. So Andrew wrote 3 books, actually. One when he was in seminary at Baylor, and that was with his first battle with cancer as a teenager. And that book's amazing. I just kind of had a second edition editing on it and redid the cover. And so there's Your Best Life Later, then A Gray Faith, and The Ellie Project. And you can find all those books at Ellie Project, ELLIE project.com.
All right. Well, we'll be sure to check that out. Thank you. So thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy. I appreciate it.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that time with Bailey. You can see just how God has worked in her life. And I'm just going to be real honest that this has been a really hard week, especially for people in my personal community. I don't know. I mean, nationwide, we have experienced the death of Joey Feek. If you're not familiar, it was kind of all over Facebook, but she was a country star who died of cancer. And she had a little girl that had just turned 2 that has Down syndrome. And so now she will not be able to mother her child. And so I think it's been amazing to watch, though, that Joey showed everybody how to love well and how to keep faith through something very difficult. And so I just related that back so much to Bailey's husband and all the stuff he was able to pass on, even past his death, and what good has come out of that terrible tragedy in both of their lives. And it's not to say that it negates the pain and it negates the fact that it is a tragedy that cancer has taken their lives, but it is to say that God can take a situation like that and bring good out of it. And that speaks to God's good character, that what was meant for evil can be used for good. We also, in my personal community, we have had the deaths of 2 men, very upstanding, talented, committed men to their church. And it's just been really hard in our community to see that just very close together. But I think what's been wonderful to look at their lives, and what they see when you look at their lives is the talent that they had, the love of their family they had, the love of their church, and the service that they provided. That's what we look at when we think about somebody's life, and that's what we can celebrate when somebody passes. And I think all of this together for me is coming together and really speaks to this life that we lead while we have it. You know, Bailey learned life is short. Life is short. And these things that scare us, you know, we can be courageous. We're still going to feel small, and we're going to feel weak, and we're going to feel scared, but we can do it anyway. These things that God is calling us to do, let's live them well. Let's be courageous, and not to say we don't have any fear, but let's be courageous and do them anyway. And just like she did, like, even though she feels ill-equipped, that she's putting herself out there and say, hey, I have a really good message and feel like I'm supposed to do this. So I just want to encourage you guys, you know, life is short. I'm so reminded of that this week, especially with her story and these personal things, and with Joey Feeks. Life is short, guys, and God has plans for us, and we don't know when our time is up. We just don't. And God has these plans, and we need to say yes. And we don't want to be able to, you know, look back and say, man, I wasted it. I wasted it because I was too scared, or I wasted it because I was not sure, or I didn't think I was good enough. Like, whatever it is, let's say yes to God, and look at these people in our lives that have gone before us, have used their talents, have used their lives to be in service of other people, and to say yes to whatever God is calling you to do. You know, you may not be called to speak like she was, but I know that God's calling you to do something, you know, whether it's just to share love with your neighbor, whether it's to take a meal to somebody, you know, go on a mission trip, you know, whatever it is, God is calling you to something. And if he's not, I hope you listen. I hope you stop and listen to say, Lord, I know you have good plans for me. I know you have planned good works for me. What are they? And then just use these tragedies as fuel to say, hey, life is short, but I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. So when I can look back, I know that God was able to use me and my service and my talents for his glory. And I just want to encourage you, you know, as you think forward, just as she talked about, how Andrew talked about, was that, you know, death is not just the end of something, it's also the beginning of something beautiful. So these people that we have lost, that have loved the Lord and they love Jesus Christ and have accepted him as their Savior, this is just the beginning. This was just the beginning of their forever. And one day, guys, you know, for those of us who believe in Jesus, we're going to join them. So this is not the end. You know, one day I hope to I'm going to meet Andrew, and I'm going to meet Joey Feek, and I'm going to meet the men that we have meet again, the men that we lost in our community. And so this is just a pause. We will see you later. But in the meantime, let's do the things while we're on earth. Let's do the things that God has called us to with great fervor and great courage and great love for others. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed that. I want to remind you to go get the app. On the App Store. I want to remind you to go to the shop if you would like to buy a t-shirt. The weather is getting warmer here, I know, in the Carolinas, so if you got a long sleeve, get a short sleeve now. We got some really cool colors in actually this week, some really pretty pinks and greens that's going to look really nice with the white during the summer. Also, you can go see the show notes over at featherspodcast.com and leave a message for me or Bailey. So thank you guys so much for being here this week, and we will see you next week on Feathers.